Hi guys! So today we are going to review more about solving equations, but we've been doing one-step equations. You show one inverse on both sides and you're good to go. Today we're going to be solving two-step equations. So let's go ahead and get started on that. A two-step equation has how many different operations? Two-step equation has two different operations. To solve, use how many inverses do you think you would use for a two-step equation? Two inverses. So for a one-step, if it was plus 5, we minus 5 on both sides. But in today's lesson, we're going to see for example, 3y minus 8 equals 25. So here we have multiplication and subtraction, and we can't combine them because one has a y and one doesn't. So this is as simple as it can get, but we still have two different types of math. The green here, we have multiplication, whereas in the orange, we have subtraction. They both need to be undone, right? That's kind of what we're doing. We're taking them away from the y. How do we know which one to undo first? Well, I want you to think about when you have groceries. Okay, if I go grocery shopping, I'm going to put a box of cereal at the bottom, and maybe then a box of granola bars, and then I'm probably going to put my eggs and then my bread, right? I wouldn't want to put my bread or eggs at the bottom of the bag because they would get squished, right? Well, how do I undo that? When I get home, how do I empty out those groceries? Do I reach all the way down into the bottom of the bag and grab the box of cereal? No, I grab the bread and the eggs because they're on top. So really, I loaded it one way, and then to unload it, I worked backwards. I started at where I finished. That's what we do with order of operations as well, or with solving two-step equations as well. We actually, to unsolve an equation, we go backwards through the order of operations. So remember, we've always learned those order of operations, parentheses, then exponent, multiply, divide. Well, to unsolve an equation, because the equation's already ready for us, to get rid of all that math, we actually work backwards. So we get rid of addition or subtraction first. Then we get rid of our multiply, divide, then our exponents, and then our parentheses. Okay. We won't actually see any exponents this school year. You'll deal with those later. So remember, if you see addition or subtraction, we're actually going to get rid of that first because we're working backwards. We're undoing math that's already there. Then we get rid of multiply, divide, and finally our parentheses up there. So let's go ahead and look at what does that look like. Oh, just kidding. Let's take note of our steps. This says take notes. That means write this down. Step number 1, write and simplify. Just like we did with our one-step equations. Write it and simplify it. Step number 2, show inverse number 1 on both sides. So there's two types of math. Figure out which math to get rid of first, and then show that one's inverse on both sides. Solve it, then show the inverse of the other type of math and solve it. And then we can check our answer at the end. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at an example here. We have 5x plus 3 equals 48. Remember, we are doing order of operations backwards. So I'm actually going to write my order of operations here. And remember, we go backwards. So I'm actually starting at the addition or subtraction. Do you see any addition or subtraction here? Yeah, we see addition in this plus 3. So we need to undo that plus 3. We do that by doing the inverse of plus 3, which we learned back in 2.4 that is minus 3 on both sides. So again, we subtract 3 on both sides. 48 minus 3, that's going to give us 45 on the right side of the equation. And then I have a plus 3 and a minus 3. They cancel each other out. So now I have what's left of 5x. Now we have a one-step equation, which is what we did all last week. So 5x equals 45. To solve this, I do the inverse of multiplying by 5. I divide by 5 on both sides. These 5's cancel out, and I'm left with x equals 45. Oops, sorry, not 45. 45 divided by 5 is 9. X equals 9. There we go. Gotta actually do the math, right? So, right here, this step I'm circling in yellow, did you show that? That inverse, that's our inverse number 1. So again, that's our first inverse here, inverse number 1. And then this step here in green, that's our inverse number 2. I circled it in yellow there again. You have to show both of these inverse. Inverse number 1, which is the minus 3 on both sides, and then inverse number 2, which is the divide by 5 on both sides. We had to really figure out what type of math to get rid of first. So we looked at our order of operations backwards. Let's go ahead and have you try one. Remember, you want to follow that order of operations backwards. So again, starting at the bottom of our order of operations and working our way up. Pause the video to try. Let's check our answers. All right, how'd you do? Did you show your inverse of plus 4 first to get 7x equals 28? Then did you show your inverse of divide by 7 on both sides to get x equals 4? Again, if you got x equals 4, great. But make sure you showed your inverses because you won't get full credit if you did not. So again, must show your inverses on both sides. Let's go ahead and look at another example here. So I see that I have division. I see that I have division here with the dividing by 2. And I also see that I have subtraction with the subtracting 8. I need to figure out which one of these I'm going to get rid of first. And I do that by looking at the order of operations backwards. So I can see that I'm going to get rid of the minus 8 first. So I do that by adding 8 on both sides. Subtraction was lower on order of operations, so we do those first. These 8's cancel out. So I'm left with y divided by 2 equals 12. I rewrote my division symbol using a division symbol instead of the fraction bar. It doesn't matter. They mean the same thing. Fraction, the y divided by 2 in fraction form, you could have rewritten it that way also. Doesn't matter. Totally up to you. So now I just have a divide by 2 hanging on to the y. So I got to get rid of that, and I'm going to do that by timesing by 2 on both sides. These 2's cancel each other out, so I'm left with y over there, and 12 times 2 is 24. So here you can see I showed inverse number 1, adding 8 on both sides. Here you can see I showed inverse number 2, multiplying by 2 on both sides. Couple of things to remember. Which type of math do we do first? Well, order of operations backwards. Did I show inverse number 1? Did I show inverse number 2? And did I solve correctly? Okay, so those are the few things that we need to make sure we're remembering. Go ahead and you try this one. Remember, show your inverse on both sides. Okay, here are the answers for this one. How'd you do? Evaluate your own understanding. Did you show the first inverse minus 3 on both sides to get m divided by 5 equals 6? And then, did you show inverse number 2 timesing by 5 on both sides to get m equals 30? Again, we want to evaluate our understanding. How are we doing on this skill? Those steps in pink have to be shown. Make sure you show your work just like I am. All right, let's do a self-check. Can you solve two-step equations? Remember, order of operations backwards to figure out which type of math to get rid of first. Go ahead and try these in your notebook. All right, let's go ahead and check these answers. So again, self-evaluate. How did you do? Did you get the right answers? H equals 40 and X equals 5. But also, did you show your inverses correctly, like I did here in orange? How you doing? Do you understand this skill? Or do you need a little bit more help before we move on? Okay, so we're going to move on to a little bit of a trickier idea, but it's not trickier really at all. Remember, our goal is to get our variable all alone. So here's our variable. I need to figure out what type of math is hanging on to this variable here. And what I see is some subtraction and some multiply. I got to get rid of those in order to get the variable all alone, which is our goal. So, do I get rid of my subtraction first or my multiply? Subtraction, because we're working order of operations backwards. So I'm going to add 8 on both sides. Now, this is where people get a little confused. I add the 8 right under the minus 8, but then I have to do it on the other side of my equals sign. So whatever else is on the other side of the equals bar. So these minus 8s and plus 8s cancel out. All I'm left on this side of the equation is 4b equals, on the other side of the equal sign, is a 20. I solve this by dividing both sides by 4. Divide by 4. Divide by 4. Which gives me my final answer here of b equaling 5. So even though it seems to be written backwards, you still do the same stuff. You're trying to get the variable alone. Somebody did come to my office hours, great job, and asked, well, could I just write it like this instead? 4b minus 8 equals 12. They said, can I switch them around so my variable is always on the left? Yes. If this way here is easier for you, do it that way. Okay? If it helps to switch the sides of the equals, do that. Just make sure you switch everything over to the other side. Okay? So go ahead and you try this one. Remember, if you need to switch them around, you can. All right, let's check our answers. So our answer here is k equals 48. I added 9 on both sides, and then I multiplied by 3 on both sides to get my final answer of k equaling 48. Let's go ahead and try another one. Now, this one's a little bit trickier. This says m plus 2 all divided by 3. So another way to write this one is in parentheses, m plus 2 all divided by 3 equals 4. Now, I know this says a you try, but I'm going to walk you through this one because it is a little trickier. Now, remember, we're looking for which type of math to do first, and we do that by order of operations backwards. So first I look for, is there any addition or subtraction? There is, but it's all on the top of my division together. Or, like I rewrote it, it's all in a parentheses together. So it's actually saved for the end, okay? Because it's lumped together with my m. It's in parentheses with my m, and parentheses is all the way up here. So really, there are no addition or subtraction yet. Then I look, is there multiply or divide? Well, yeah, this fraction bar divided by 3. That's what that really means. So I'm going to get rid of my divide by 3 first here by multiplying it on both sides. So again, I multiplied by 3 on both sides. And I'm left with m plus 2 equals 12. So again, because everything was on the top of my fraction bar, that's really saying it's lumped together, it's put together. You could rewrite it in parentheses like I did over on the right if that helps. I need to get rid of that plus 2. So I'm going to minus 2 from both sides. And I'm left with m equaling 10. And I can check that. M plus 2, so 10 plus 2 is 12 divided by 3 is 4. We did it right. So you try this one. Got some harder numbers there. Go ahead and try this in your notes. All right, here's the correct answer. All right, how'd you do? We are adding that 1.08, so we need to get rid of that first by subtracting it, and then we divide the 9.3. Let's look at another one. We're going to introduce some fractions here. Guys, it's the same scale, it's the same idea, but now we just have fractions instead of whole numbers. But you do have a calculator. Use this, okay? Go ahead and try it in your notebook. Pause the video to give you more time. All right, here's our correct answer. All right, so we subtracted 1/4 on both sides. We got 1/3 m equals 2/4. You might have simplified that down there to 1/2. Either way, that works. Divide both sides by 1/3. M equals 1 and 1/2. Guys, I typed all that into the calculator. Well, 3/4 minus 1/4, I did in my head to get 2/4. They had a common denominator. That's quick then. But 2/4 divided by 1/2, I just typed into my calculator. So I said 2/4 divided by, 2/4 divided by 1/3. So it looked like that. 2/4 divided by 1/3. Enter. And it spit out 1 and 1/2. Guys, use these calculators. They help you. They make things quicker. Okay? As much as we need to know how to do those skills, when we have the calculator, we're more focused on, I'm focused on, can you show the inverse? Not can you divide fractions? Okay, that's why we're giving you the calculator. All right. Now we got one of these. First, you need to write an equation. Then you need to solve it. So can you take 5 more than a number y is 8 and make it an equation? Try that. 5 more than a number y is 8. Pause the video and then play it once you have it. All right, so our more than is a math word here. That means to add. So we have 5 more than, 5 plus. A number y is our variable. So 5 plus y. Is a math word for equals. So 5 plus y equals 8. Now I show my inverse on both sides. To get rid of adding a 5, I subtract a 5 on both sides. And we get the answer here of y equals 3. So again, this one wasn't really about can you solve it. It was can you write it, and then can you solve it. Same thing with this one. Go ahead, pause the video, write an equation, and then solve the equation. Press play when you're ready to check your answer. All right, let's go ahead and check that answer. All right, so the first thing I saw here was that word product. That means to multiply 3/5 and m together. So 3/5 times m is, that means to equal 7/10. Then I divided with 3/5 on both sides. I just typed it into my calculator and it gave me 1 and 1/6. Okay. Now we've got a story problem. Write that equation. It costs $22 to enter the amusement park. Each ride costs $3. You have $40. Write and solve an equation to find the number of rides R you can go on. So we'll walk through this one together. You have $40. That's our total. So it's going to equal 40. That's the first thing that jumped out to me is how much money you have. It costs $22 to enter the amusement park, and then $3 for each ride. So I know that it's going to be $22 no matter what. So 22 plus whatever rides I go on. Well, if one ride is $3, how much is 5 rides? $3 times 5 is 15. So I'm multiplying $3 for each ride R I go on. Now I can solve that by subtracting 22 on both sides. Subtracting 22. I get 3R equals 18. Divide by 3 on both sides. And we get a final answer of 6 rides. R equals 6, right? So R equals 6. So my final answer with the label is 6 rides. So if you have $40 and you went to this amusement park, you could go on 6 rides. Let's go ahead and look at a different type of problem. Now there's 2 ways to solve this. You could apply the distributive property and get a new equation. 4m plus 36 equals 56. That works. Subtract 36 from both sides, divide by 4. Awesome. Or, remember we do order of operations backwards. So we save our parentheses for last. So we actually are going to get rid of this times by 4 first. So we divide by 4 on both sides. These 4's cancel out. So I'm left with m equaling 56 divided by 4 is 14. Oh, and it's not m equals 4. Sorry about that. We still have m plus 9 left. So m plus 9 equals 14. Now I can subtract by 9, and get my final answer of m equaling 5. Okay. So again, 2 options. If you chose to do the distributive property first, you are more than welcome to do that and then solve. Or you can divide by 4 and then deal with the stuff in the parentheses. It's totally up to you. Try this one for me. Combine like terms first and then solve. Press play when you're ready to check your answer. All right, here is the correct answer for this one. All right, so here I combined my 8y and my 4y to get 12y's. My plus 2 can't be combined with anything because there's no variable on it. So I have my new equation of 12y plus 2 equals 26. Subtract 2 from both sides. Then I can divide by 12 on both sides to get y equals 2. So this is a review of skills that you should have learned last year. Okay? If you need more help, you just come to my office hours and I can walk you through. You do have a homework worksheet. Check the calendar for that.